And next on stage is co-founder and CEO of Impact Hub Yorkshire. He is also a TEDx Bradford curator. It is Kamran Rashid, and he will be speaking on how social enterprises can be both profitable and purposeful, and to explore how mission-led businesses can drive sustainable change. Kamran, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, it's a real privilege to be invited onto this stage to kind of share some insights with you about the work that I do. And before I start, I'd just like to extend a massive congratulations to Fadi Ithani and the team at Muslim Charities Forum. Can we give them, first of all, a big round of applause? My name's Kamran Rashid. I'm the founder and chief executive of Impact Hub Yorkshire, which I will share a little bit about with you shortly. But before I do, just to give you context about myself, I'm also a founding trustee of the UK City of Culture team in Bradford. And for those of you that don't know, Bradford in 2025 is the UK City of Culture. So especially those from London, please do venture outside the M25. We have 6 direct trains to Bradford every day. And just for context, the Jameel Prize, which is one of the world's largest Islamic photography prizes, is currently in Bradford. So it's definitely worth visiting. Also worth mentioning, which was mentioned on the stage earlier on, I'm one of the 7 England committee members of the National Lottery Community Fund. And I know there's conversations and different debates around Muslim communities accessing money from the National Lottery Community Fund. But I want you to know that I do champion our communities and where we can remove barriers for Muslim charities in particular to access that opportunity. I sit on the community fund and I do champion that. So a little bit about Impact Hub Yorkshire. We were Impact Hub Bradford up until 2 months ago. And 2 months ago, we were very privileged to host His Majesty King Charles, who came to Bradford to unveil us from Impact Hub Bradford to Impact Hub Yorkshire. And for those of you that don't know who Impact Hub is the world's largest network of social impact makers. And we are one of the hubs here in the UK. There's 4 in the UK, and we're one of them in Bradford, but serving the Yorkshire district. Now, I was given the challenge of speaking about purpose-driven enterprises, and we're here at a forum which is celebrating charities. And I get asked this question all the time. We promote social entrepreneurship, and people say, what does a social entrepreneur do? So I just want to get a bit of an idea from the audience today what you think social enterprise is. So does anyone want to put their hand up and hazard a guess at what they think I mean when I say social enterprise or social entrepreneurship? Anyone? Brother here. When I say social enterprise, what do you think I mean?
I think you mean the part of business which is driven not only for profit, but driven the impact making in society, in education, health, and like kind of making a positive contribution to society.
Fantastic. Anyone else from this side of the room want to take a guess? Anyone? Young man here?
Is it like a model of reinvestment to lead to social impact?
Is it a model of reinvestment that leads to social impact? It's a little bit of that. So what I find is I'm going to demonstrate what we mean by social enterprise and social entrepreneurship, and I hope it helps visualize and contextualize what we mean by social enterprise. It's also worth noting that we use the term community business, purpose-driven enterprises, business for good, but I'm talking about social entrepreneurship. And as a theme, it's really emerging and gaining a lot of traction. So when we talk about politics, we talk about political parties on a spectrum. We have right-wing parties, left-wing parties. But I want you to understand organizations and businesses in a similar way, which are on a spectrum. So on this side of the spectrum, we have businesses, right? And there's loads of them, whether it's Nike, Asda, Mercedes, BMW, whoever. They have board of directors, shareholders, and at the end of the year, they sit down and they measure success. And the way that they measure success is how much profit they've made, right? Have they made more money than it took to make that money? So if they put £1 million in, and they made £1.5 million, they made £500,000 profit, they've been successful. That's how a business measures success. On this side of the spectrum, we've got charities, and we're here at the Muslim Charities Forum. Now, I think there's a role for charities, but charities are very much dependent on grants and donations, right? So charities have a board of trustees. If a business has directors, a charity has a board of trustees. And the board of trustees, I've asked this question, how should a charity measure success? And the number of times I've received the response, a charity measures success by the amount of money it fundraises in a year. Well, that's actually incorrect. A charity should be measuring success against its social objectives. A charity is set up to deliver some sort of social impact. It has social objectives that it needs to address. Cancer research is trying to cure cancer. Amnesty International is trying to end war. Oxfam is trying to end poverty. WWF is helping animals. So at the end of the year, when the trustees from a charity sit down, the way that they should be measuring success is by the social impact that they've delivered, right? So business over there, charity over here. Now for me, a social enterprise is somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. It sits in between a business and a charity. And this is what we mean by when we talk about social enterprise and social entrepreneurship. A social enterprise is first and foremost driven by social impact. It wants to make a difference to some sort of social issue. However, the fundamental difference between a social enterprise and a charity is that a social enterprise has a business model. That business model allows it to generate an income, and the income that is generated through the business model allows it to deliver the social impact in the way that a charity does. So, if a business measures success by profit, a charity measures success by social impact, a social enterprise measures success by what is known as the triple bottom line. And the triple bottom line is people, planet, and profit. What impact has it had on people? What impact has it had on the planet? And in what way has it made a profit, right? And the reason social enterprises are definitely gaining traction, in the past decade and a half in particular, austerity has meant that we've seen so many charities and public services being absolutely just decimated and cut, which has left many communities without the support that they need. And what social enterprises are focusing on is what's about becoming sustainable. So for those of you that are familiar with the term, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man a fish and you feed him for a lifetime. A social enterprise at its heart, at its core, is trying to deliver social impact in a sustainable way, right? And I'm going to introduce you to a few probably common brands that you're aware of that you didn't know were social enterprises, which are social enterprises, right? But it's also worth noting this, that Demos did a report I think it was about 10 years ago, and they said that the millennial generation is 83% more likely to want a job or a career that makes a difference to society as well as making money. Now, if we think about that, whether it's in your business practices or whether it's in the organizations you run, your future workforce wants social impact at the core of what it does. It wants the ability to know that it's also making a difference. And if you think about it, so many businesses now are also promoting their social impact before they promote their product. So Kenco will tell you how they stop children going into gangs in South America before they share their coffee. Purser will tell you how they're making the ocean cleaner before they sell their product, right? So social enterprise is definitely gaining traction. And before I share a couple of examples with you of social enterprises you may be familiar with, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. That you'll be familiar with. Sorry, totally lost my train of thought there. But anyway, I think I'm a guy who stands on stage. I was on stage a few weeks ago, hundreds of people. But when you're the lead-up act to Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad and you see him walking in as you're on stage, it does kind of send you a little bit off kilter. But just to kind of give you an example of a couple of brands which you may be familiar with, because I'm trying to make the talk relevant for the audience today, right? So if we think about Big Issue, Big Issue was started by a gentleman called John Bird, and John Bird had been homeless himself and wanted to help people that had been homeless, right? And there's something about social enterprises we see, and it might be the same in the charity sector as well. A lot of people set up social enterprise after having a lived experience of the challenge they're trying to face. So John Bird set up the Big Issue. So when we're walking through London or Bradford or wherever, you may see people selling the Big Issue. Now the story of that is that the Big Issue produces a magazine. The magazine makes money from advertisements that people pay to have in the Big Issue, which has made John Bird an entrepreneur and a businessman. But what makes it different is John Bird allows homeless people to sell and become street vendors selling that magazine, right? So he's giving homeless people a sense of, dignity by selling rather than begging. The other example is, if any of you are familiar with the shoe brand, Tom's, which stands for Tomorrow's Shoes. The story of Tom's is Blake Mycoskie, the founder, went to South America. He was on a farm. He saw kids who used to work on this farm that were that poor that they didn't even have footwear. So what they used to do is cut rice sacks, fold it onto their feet. But if they didn't have that, they would cut their feet and they couldn't even work to earn that little bit of money to keep a bit of bread on their table. So what Blake did is he went back to America. And when he went back to America, he says, I want to do something to help these communities. Now think about this. If someone comes to you and says, can you give me a bit of money because I want to help someone in Palestine or in Syria, you're going to get what's known as donor fatigue. You'll get to a stage, it's not possible for you to keep on giving it. And Blake realized this. So what Blake did is, inspired by what he saw in South America, he set up this brand. It was originally known as Tomorrow's Shoes. And his friend says to him, do you know what? It's not going to catch on, call it something else. So he shortened it to Tom's. Now what Tom's does, which is really exciting, is every time someone buys a pair of Tom's footwear, and Tom's footwear is on par with Converse or Vans or whatever. So if you go into a shoe shop, it's not seen as a charity product. It's not seen as a lesser of a product. What Tom's does, it sells footwear, but for every footwear you purchase of Tom's, Blake's company will donate a pair to someone who can't afford it. Now that's sustainable, right? Someone's buying a product, but whilst they're buying that product, they're also helping someone who's less privileged. Now think about that. In 21st century Britain, in the West, our population, we've become a lot more conscious consumers. People want to make them decisions. And when we're thinking about delivering impact, and charities are set up to deliver impact, I think we need to also consider there's other ways for us to deliver social impact as well. And social enterprise for me is something I'm really big on advocating for, and I would definitely get people to start thinking about in your own enterprises how you can be more entrepreneurial. We say profit is not a dirty word, right? Profit with purpose, or more than private profit, or more than profit is what we say. So just before I wrap up, because I'm mindful, the thing that's stopping you guys getting home and hearing from the keynote speaker from today is me, right? So I'm going to keep the last bit brief. But if anyone is interested in learning about social entrepreneurship or social enterprise, I would definitely encourage you to get in touch via LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to share a little bit more about what we do and how we can help. But just to kind of give you two things, right? One is, if any of you have heard of the cake campaign, a lot of Muslim charities use that now. Dates for Syria, dates for Palestine, cakes for orphans. That campaign actually started via Islamic Relief at a volunteers meeting in Bradford, which I was at in 2011-12. I'm not taking credit for it, but just to give you an idea, when we're thinking about social enterprise, the cake campaign every Ramadan comes in, and what it says is, buy a cake. But by you buying a cake, you're being, it's an entrepreneurial endeavor. They're not giving you a cake for free, are they? They're selling you a cake. But by you buying a cake, what you're also doing is making an impact on someone who couldn't otherwise have maybe had that support or maybe have not benefited, right? And we're thinking about this in entrepreneurial ways. Second example, if there's anyone here that owns buildings in your charities, in what way can we use the building when it's not being used for charitable purposes to generate income, which then allows you to deliver social impact? I think Islam embraces the idea of social entrepreneurship without kind of going into it. I'm mindful my time's up. But if we think about the Waqf model, Waqf is doing that. It's setting something up which creates an endowment in perpetuity, which generates income. That income then allows you to deliver social impact. So to wrap up, I would say, charities, there's a place for charities, absolutely, and continue to do the great work that you're doing. But I think there's also a need to deliver social impact through an entrepreneurial way. We designed do you know what? We're going to do a shameless plug, but I'm mindful that we've got another speaker coming on. So on that note, thank you very much.